we come here to the race for Boise mayor heats up. It's called by the Boise Dad by Margaret Carmel. Boise mayor candidate Lori McLean, Mike Masterson, and Joe Evans, and Aaron Reese participated in a forum hosted by the City Club and League of Women Voters this week. The candidates answered questions on their vision for the city of Boise's housing policy, the management of the Boise Police Department, and how or if the city should stand against Idaho's strict abortion laws. McLean and Masterson have different priorities when it comes to Boise's housing policy, obviously. McLean believes that affordable housing is the city's most pressing issue, while Masterson believes the most pressing issue is a demoralized Boise Police Department. McLean touted the city's success with several land trust projects, as well for her partnership with the Boise State University to purchase an apartment complex for families in the homeless community. Masterson criticized McLean for hiring former Chief Ryan Lee to lead the department, who underwent a criminal investigation by the Idaho State Police for felony battery after he severely injured a sergeant in a department briefing room. Then on the topic of homelessness, McLean said she was proud of her record of investing in short-term solutions for housing residents in need, while also building long-term projects. Masterson disagreed and said the city should stop spending city funds to provide gap financing for affordable housing units and should instead turn to a strategy of annexing large swaths of low-grade agricultural land in South Boise to add more plant commodities to keep up with the demand of new houses. And then on the topic of abortion, which is the hot button one here, since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last year, abortion rights have been left up to the states. McLean and the Boise City Council passed a resolution following the decision, deprioritizing investigation into abortions in the city limits in response to Idaho's strict abortion ban with criminal penalties. Masterson said McLean's public stance on this issue and other national or state political issues is a mistake. He said he doesn't believe politics should dictate the matters of women's health, but instead the city should focus on quietly working with the legislature to revise their moves like cutting funding for child care, parental care, and Medicare, and the state's maternal mortality committee. All that to say, the election for the Boise mayor and the 4 city council seats will be on November 7th, which as a person, I grew up in Boise for about 15 years. And it's a town I love. I've come to very much adopt Caldwell to be my home now, and I love it a ton. But there's still a part of me that there's tons of Boise where I have tons of memories and things growing up there and biking, and tons of friends and people that I have there and connections. I will admit with this race, personally, just, side thing out there for disclaimer, I am not a fan of Mayor Lori McLean, specifically on how hard she is pushed on especially transgenderism, where I know a ton of people that have grown up there in Boise, and just the state in general does not support that, and yet she keeps trying to shove it down everyone's throats that, Boise is this friendly LGBTQ haven or whatever else, which it's not. Honestly, it's not. The majority of people, I don't think, in Boise support it or are even in that class. I think LGBTQ people that have that issue and delusion and that really, truly need help, that's the most loving thing we can do for them, are still even a minority in Boise especially. We're not some crazy city like down in California. I will admit, I don't fully agree. This is my commentary, my opinion, kind of putting that disclaimer there. But that Masterson is not my first pick, shall we say. But I think he's a way, way better option than McLean. I'm really hoping he wins his race. I'm planning on reaching out here to hopefully have him here on for an interview. There's definitely some things I disagree with him on, but I do very much agree with the priorities that he's talking about here. I think the Boise police force has definitely been gutted, and McLean has moved a lot of resources away and is kind of fiddling with it in ways that she shouldn't be. And you definitely need to get the controversy and issues that are happening with the Boise police force out of it and to kind of bring it back down to ground as we see other towns in the valley doing and around the state. And I think Masterson would do a great job of that. On the homeless issue, I feel that in areas and also in history, I think the stuff he's talking about is a good thing to be talking about. But I don't think housing per se is the issue for homelessness in Idaho. Per se, I know it's an issue for people moving in here and it's an issue for property prices. So if we could get those kind of housing costs down, it would help those moving in and industry overall and stuff. But I don't think the housing is icto facto tied to reason that people are homeless in the state of Idaho. I think it's tied mainly to the fact of different economic or sociological things. You see in, I think, history past, I think it makes my point here, that in societies where homelessness was encouraged in the sense that free money was given to homeless people, not resources, to be like, hey, you're homeless, cool. As a community, we want to help you out. Here's a food shelter. The government maybe does give you some money or something. But once you get past a certain period of that you haven't actually gotten a decent job, we're not seeing you moving forward, right? We're not seeing you actually getting a job. We're not seeing you moving out and different stuff, a time frame, right? Not just a economic thing, because we see that in other areas where there's different programs the government has done and said, hey, once your income gets to this level, then cool, you don't need us anymore. Well, that's where people then say, well, what incentive do I have to get to that point? If I just stay below that threshold, then cool, I can just sit here and keep getting a check cut from the government to me, which is not good. We don't want that. We want people to be productive members of society. We want them to have families, functional families. We want them to have enough money and discretionary income that it can be infused back into the economy. We want them to have homes. We want to have them be productive members of the community. And I would say, there's a certain point to being like, hey, we don't want this huge government bureaucracy that's trying to look at every part of your life if you get poor. That makes kind of this almost like state class of people and different things, right? But what we do is, I would say and argue that we put a time limit on it, that we say, hey, here's some funds we'll give you. In that time frame, if you get above a certain, threshold economically, then cool, those funds are going to be not available to you. But also, we're only going to give those funds for X amount of time, because that's a reasonable window for you to try to get yourself on your feet and get moving. And it encourages and incentivizes people to get jobs, to get working, to get out and do stuff. In America, we're so giving, we're so loving, and it's an amazing blessing. But like Jordan Peterson, which is a gentleman I really love to listen to regularly, says that sometimes caring, sometimes that motherly instinct, right, is the biggest curse sometimes for us to grow. That there's times where the hard truths of reality need to be brought full front for us to grow and really develop. We don't want a society that's given an easy life, an easy time makes weak men, but hard times make strong men, right? And so we don't want to make it enjoyable to be, homeless. We don't want to make it enjoyable to be poor. We want to encourage people to climb out of it. And if they don't climb out of it, well, then we should pray for them and be there and help them, but also understand that, we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a fallen world, and there are going to be those that are going to have tough lives, and they have to live with the consequences of their decisions. Anywho, moving on from that, I didn't know about at all that the mayor, Mrs. McLean there, had done this with abortion, that had told investigators to turn kind of more of a blind eye from enforcing it, which I guess is the least she could try to do on her more left-leaning position. I think that's just horrible. I think objectively, abortion is the killing of a human being and thus murder. And so I'm really glad Idaho is trying to get laws, stuff, and passed to try to fight against this. I think we're going to look back in history and see that this was just a horrible, horrible chapter in history. And for those that didn't stand up and fight against it, that the certain amount of guilt or weight should be placed upon that. But in any case, something I definitely wanted to share with you. I'm hoping to reach out if you know any of the people that are running or have resources. If you're someone that's involved in any of those cabinets and different things for these races, please reach out to me. I'd love to have any of these people, McLean, Masterson, any of the people different running, Aaron Reese, or Joe Evans, if they want to come on. I'd love to have them on and talk about what are their plans, what are their solutions, what do they see the future of Boise being.